Hey, bookish friends, it's your girl Alyssa, and I'm here with a really fun episode, half romance, half horror, with the author Jessica Lewis. You may know lots of her books from books that link to like wolves and vampires and spooky, along with summer romances and queer representation. Without further ado, this is Jessica Lewis. Say hi, Jessica.
Hi, nice to meet you
Hi.
guys. Happy to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I'm going to do some icebreaker questions with you. So, before we dive into all things your books. So, my first question for you is what made you fall in love with reading and writing novels?
I have always been a big reader. My mom was a big reader, and so we had always had a ton of books in our house, and I just grew up around it. But the funny thing is that when I was in fourth grade, I won a contest for like our whole class wrote a book, a little picture book, and mine was
Hmm,
selected as a winner. And it was in the library for a year. And I think I've been chasing that high ever since. I'm just
I
like,
get that.
wow, that's awesome. I
That
want my
like
book to be in every library.
scholastic, like bookish vibe. I get that. I hear
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
What was it? They used to do like free pizza at my school. They did like pizza and a book if you
Yes,
got like really good
yes.
grades.
Yes. We need to go back. That was when
Ooh.
life was good.
When life was good. I was sitting here, I was like, ooh, pizza. And now I'm an adult. I'm like, I have a dairy allergy. Ooh. So
Oh no.
everything comes to the price.
It does.
But your books for me are so comforting and kind of touch on both the romance element and young adult, while also touching on in another genre that you tap into is like horror. And you have a few really cool books coming out soon that I'm so excited to highlight. But I want to dive into my next icebreaker question for you. How would you describe your writing style to listeners?
My style is intentionally accessible, but there are big feelings and deeper themes behind a fun premise.
Mm, okay. What are the deeper themes you like to explore in your books?
Well, I always have a bad mom in every book. It's not always on purpose. It's just something that, you pull from real life. So I
Mm,
have that. But some books talk about poverty and how the struggle um will make you do things that other people wouldn't do and how desperation breeds trouble. And so
mm,
that was like in my debut. And then I've talked about the idea of class and religion and the idea that if you ostracize someone from their village, they will burn it down to feel its warmth. And just all of my books have stuff like that. So, but then like you pair it with a fun premise like the village one. There's like a big talking snake as well, which is super fun.
okay. I like the concept of like your characters feel very fleshed out and human and relatable, like in Grampire. And I really appreciate how you touch on topics and discussions. Like in Grampire, we have a Black older woman who's a vampire and who has a granddaughter who's a wolf. And what does that look like? And the world's coming to an end. And but there's still a certain level of horror along with a little bit of humor and family. And I absolutely love that. And then we have
Yes.
like a summary romance coming up with Hallie's Rules for Recovering Romantic, which looks really cool because I am a romantic. Um, the
Oh, you're
concept of
gonna love
someone,
Hallie.
I'm so excited. Like the concept of someone having rules, like, okay, I am not going to fall in love this summer because every time I do, it's like I'm falling more in love with the idea of someone versus the actual person. And I don't know. I like the idea of this being set in like a summer camp. We have queer rep, we have people of color in like the heart of the story, vulnerability and like kind of summer love and the sweetness of that while also being vulnerable. I just really appreciate how you balance like heavy stuff with also like relatable sweet stuff. So it doesn't like bring the story down too much. And I
Yes.
like that. It's very intentional. It's very intentional. I think that's so cool. Okay, my next question for you is you've recently written a young adult romance. You've also wrote spooky weekly chapters like in Grampire, and now you have a debut horror novel coming out in 2027. What has been your favorite genre to write and why?
I love so many genres. That's why I write so many. I read very widely. I consume a ton of different media. pretty much the only thing I don't write is historical, and that's just because there's a lot of research involved, and
Mhm.
that's not my favorite. But if you twist my arm, I'll say horror is my favorite. But it's because of the variety. Like you can have horror comedies, you can have psychological horror, you can have slashers, you can have camp. Like there's just so much you can do with horror, and I love that.
Mm. I'm reading this book called What's Your Favorite Scary Movie? And it's about like the background of the Scream genre.
Oh, that's so
Um,
cool.
it is really good. And like the cover is like the Scream mask, but it's made of popcorn.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
yeah, and like the very first chapter dives into like the author and what drew her to the Scream genre. Did you know the original like screenplay name for Scream was Scary Movie?
Really?
Yeah, that was the
Oh, how
original name.
fun.
Yeah, and I like how the person who wrote the screenplay wrote the entire plot of Scream in like a single weekend, which is pretty crazy.
Oh.
Yeah, and like you get the background about Sydney Prescott, you get the background of what built this character, and you also learn about like Wes Craven, why like how he didn't want to direct the movie at first. He turned it down multiple times. Um, and then you also discuss a little bit of like in this book, you hear about Black representation in horror. If you've seen Scream 2, that you know what happens in the very first few minutes. And I don't know. There's so many like complex topics that are discussed in the horror genre. And now I feel like we're seeing a major renaissance with a lot of like horror books being written. Things like You Should Have Been Nicer Than My Mom by Vince
Hmm.
Giratto just came out. We have Trad Wife by Sarah Jessica Schaefer that just came out. We have your book that's coming out soon next year. Aaron E. Adams is writing a new book as well, which breaks on like sisterhood and Haitian community in horror. So there's a lot of really good horror coming out this year, next year. We have volume 2 of the Never Whistle at Night Indigenous Horror Anthology coming out next year, which is super fun. Volume 2. So it's like this feels like the same energy as when Beyonce comes out with a new album and every album's different. The aesthetic is different, the vibes are different. That's what horror right now feels like to me. It feels
Yeah.
like a new era of horror. And I can't wait to see what you bring to the table. And I'm trying to save it for last because I'm so excited. My next question for you is out of all the upcoming books and stories out now, which would you want to become a film and why? Like of your upcoming books?
Um, ooh, I think the newest one, This House Is Not a Home, I think that would be a fantastic movie. Just a cool 90-minute, just yeah, I think it'd be good.
Okay. And as we kind of give the listeners a little teaser of that, This House Is Not a Home. How would you describe it to folks who are just hearing about your upcoming novel right now?
So the short pitch is that it's a haunted house book. And then everybody's like, okay, I don't need to know anymore. Just if you like haunted house books, you love haunted houses. So, but there is a little bit of a twist. The the main character Loretta, she has recently lost her mother. She's grieving, and she accepts a job as like a house sitting job. But she gets more than she bargained for when the house is definitely haunted. So very fun.
Ooh. I'm so excited to read it. I think that the way that you balance like horror along with like cozy atmospheric writing, I'm excited to see how you take on the haunted house genre because it can be done in so many different ways. Um,
Yes.
Random question, why did you choose to write about a haunted house?
I actually am very scared of haunted houses. They're like my number two fear. And it's because like you're kind of helpless in a haunted house. Like my house could be haunted right now and I just don't know. And then I do one thing to piss off a ghost and now I have to deal with that. And I don't have time. I'm already overworked. I don't have time to deal with ghosts. and and
Reasonable.
and so I connected it. This was intentional. I connected it with the idea of abuse because Loretta's mother was abusive. And so a haunted house is kind of like that. Like you have to appease something intangible and unknowable. You don't know what's going to set it off. You don't know what's going to make it happy. And you can't escape from it. Like it's in your house. Like there's nothing you can do about it. And so Loretta experienced childhood abuse, and so that's just how it is. Like the house is representative of her mother.
Okay. Ooh, that sounds really, really like vulnerable and complex. Like the house is a manifestation, a physical embodiment of that abuse.
Yes. Hmm.
Okay. I hear you. I see you. I'm gonna give you a random question right now, kind of bouncing off that. what is your favorite haunted house book or movie?
I really liked We Used to Live Here by Marcus. Is it Cle? I had never know how to say his last name. Cleaver or Clywer? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I loved that book, and I know it's very controversial because a lot of people you either love it or you hate it. But I love that book a lot, and I love the idea of just like the inescapable of it and how confusing it was, and the idea of you like we the reader get information the main character doesn't have, and we're screaming at the book like, oh please don't go in there, but she doesn't know, and so that one is really good to me. I really like that one. And I think it does a
Ooh.
good genre blend too. Like it is a haunted house, but it's also like cosmic horror, I think. Um,
Mm.
so I really liked that one.
Oh my gosh, the two recent haunted house books I read that I think you'd really enjoy, as well as listeners. One is The Place Where They Buried Your Heart.
Mm,
I read that I want to say 2 months ago. It was part of the Aardvark box. It follows it's like how a neighborhood, an entire neighborhood, is impacted by a haunted house generationally. It is called the Place Where They Buried Your Heart. And it follows this like one girl, she dares her little brother, very it style, to go into the haunted house because he's on her nerves and she doesn't think he's actually going to do it. And then he does.
mm,
One of his friends gets their arm like ripped off, and the other one like runs out. So the two boys escape, but one doesn't. And the one who doesn't is unfortunately her brother. They claim the house ate him.
mm.
And then you see how that tears apart her mother, her father. Now you fast forward into the future and you see who she is as an adult, and now she has a son, and she is doing everything she can to avoid her son ever going into that house. And you learn about all the people who've wandered into that house. You learn about elements of how the house haunts people, how it calls to people. It is very cosmic. And the book
Ooh.
is by Christina Henry, and it is, yeah, it's called The Place Where They Buried Your Heart. Um, I remember I wanted to read something that gave me the same, like, kind of intense summery vibes of like Summerween, where like it's hot outside, you're off school, maybe you got off work early, you snuggle up to read a scary book, and you wanted to feel like you can't turn the lights off. This
Yeah.
book gave me that energy. It also was very bittersweet because you do see how a family falls apart due to grief,
Hmm.
and like miscommunication between people, what love really means. You also can see how the house influences people's like minds. You do see abuse in the book as well, related to people who've lived in the house in the past, and how the house impacts you when you live around it, when you live in it, and when you know someone who's been inside of it.
Mm.
It is so good. It is so good. So that's a really good haunted house book. Another one is it was a debut, and it was by Johnny Compton, and it was called The Spite House. I read that recently. Also amazing. A man knowingly moves into a haunted house with his teenage daughter and his like younger daughter who's like 10 years old. One I think is 18. They're running from something, and there's this old woman, and she's like, hey, I will pay you to live in this haunted house, like whatever you want, I'll pay you lots of money, but you have to live in this haunted house and write in a journal and report to me what happens.
Mm.
And he's like, okay, I really need the money, we're running from some stuff. And it's this, this black father, his two daughters, he's already gone through a lot. I'm just trying to survive with his girls, and you don't know what he's running from. And then as they're in the house, you begin to learn about why it's haunted, what the town thinks of the haunting, what money can buy you, what money can't, how the people in the house haunt others. It reminded me a lot of Haunting of Bly Manor because there's so many different POVs. You get the
Mm.
POV
Okay.
of the old woman, and when she lies to him, you get her perspective when she's telling the truth versus what he knows and what we know. You get cosmic horror. You get to see the ghosts, and you understand from their perspective why they are haunting that location and how certain rooms in the house got haunted. It is
Ooh.
so good. It is
Yeah.
very twisty turny, but yes, it is called The Spite House. And it's very dark. And both haunted houses have children in it, and both haunted houses have children who've died in them. And for some reason, in the horror genre, if you've seen movies like Weapons, if you've seen movies
Oh
like
yeah.
Hereditary, you know most people think, oh, they're not going to kill off the kid. And they
They do.
do.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
do. It crosses like a line. It's like, okay, if you have intimacy in a horror movie or in a novel or you're gonna get killed off. If you're queer, you're gonna get killed off. If you're black, you're gonna get killed off. But for some reason, kids tended to be the thing that no one was gonna like, besides it, was like gonna
Mhm.
touch. And now it's like I feel like in the horror genre, it's become this thing where it's like, oh no, everyone's in danger. And I'm like, ooh, the stakes are a lot higher and a lot scarier because of that. So it's very spooky. It's very scary. It's giving very much like the Omen vibes, where it's like, okay, so is the kid evil? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. Ooh, that's so scary.
Yes, it is very spooky. But there's also just so many like in both of those horror books. I think any listener would enjoy them because even when there are scary moments in both books, there's also tender moments and there's like haunting moments that if you put the pieces together in your own perspective, you'll look back and you'll reread a chapter and be like, oh my gosh, like that's what was happening in the background. Similar to like the haunting of Hill House, where you look back on
Hmm.
that show and you see like ghosts in the background of each shot. Both of these books have energy like that. Like you'll finish the book and I promise you, and like a day later, you'll be thinking about something, you'll realize like, oh my gosh, that is why this person in the book was reacting this way. It is so good. I highly
Oh,
recommend
I
it.
love it. I'm
Oh my
scared.
gosh.
I'm scared
Yes.
already.
100%. I also recommend it, not necessarily a haunted house, but a demon in the house. I recommend You Should Have Been Nicer to My Mom by Vincent Toretto. They came on the podcast. They're so sweet. And their book follows a grandpa who recently passed away, who tells his whole family in his will, hey, there's a demon in our family. I made a deal with them a long time ago, and someone here has to kill them off. And the main character is thinking, like, okay, if we don't kill the demon, then we're all going to die. And now it's like you begin to realize the main character's mom passed away and someone in the family may have done it. And now the main character is
Oh.
like, oh, we're all going to go. Like, I'm going to investigate this. And the author described in a teaser that the main character feels like eyes on them when they walk around the house when they're alone.
Scary.
Very spooky. So the demon looks like, I assume, a family member. You just don't know who it is. So that book is more like Knives Out meets like, from what I've been told, like You're Next. So, ready or not vibes, where it's like, whoop,
Yes.
we made a deal and now we got to cash in.
Yeah. Oh,
So yeah,
I love how different. Like they're all haunted house books, but they're so different. Um,
100%.
yeah, they're all just like so unique. And there's just so much you can do with horror. And that just makes me so happy that there's such an abundance that we can choose from.
I agree. Kind of stepping from horror to romance, which many people probably think is a leap, but it's really not. Love can be scary too.
Yeah, it's
Ooh,
just in a
that would
different
be a
way.
good title for a book.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, take it, take it. But Hallie's Rules for a Recovering Romantic. I want to ask you a little bit about this book as this is coming up very soon. Can you tell me a little bit about what that's about?
Yeah. So, Hallie is the companion novel to the first one. So my first romance was Nav's Foolproof Guide to Falling in Love, and that one came out last year.
Hmm.
So Hallie is Nav's best friend, and so she gets her own story, and that's fun. But her story is she loves love, but it doesn't love her back. Unfortunately, she's had six exes and six very bad breakups, and she's like, "What is wrong with me? I got to figure this out." And she's going to an academic summer camp. She's like, "Okay, this is the perfect time for me to just like hit the reset button, focus on my studies, and just like have a reinvention. Like, I got to figure out what's going on with me. And I know that I'm smart, so I know that characteristic is mine, and I can just focus on that." And then she immediately falls in love with her cabin mate, like in 2 pages. And she's like, "Oh no!" And so she spends the whole summer trying not to fall in love, even though it's kind of a lost cause.
I mean, you can't choose who you fall in love with. Um, and love tends to do that when you're like, no, it's not going to happen. 2 minutes later, it's like, damn, damn, damn.
Yep, yep.
So there's bi and sapphic rep in this story, plus young adult and academic summer camp. Heartbreak, unexpected love, and a summary setting are all intertwined in this book. What inspired this story for you?
It kind of came about naturally because we were thinking, like me and my editor were thinking, what do we want book two to be? And then it just seemed like I knew in Nav, Hallie was going to the summer camp, and I was like, well, why don't we just set it at the summer camp? And then it all went from there. So
Ooh.
yeah, because I think that's a fun setting, and it was a fun book to write because it is very summer vibes, like very it's set in Alabama, so it's extremely hot in a bad way, and and it was just really really fun to write, and also Hallie is my first bi protagonist. A lot of my characters are queer, but they're mostly lesbians, and so I was like, why don't I have a bi character? So I finally this is my first one, and
I like that.
yeah, she was really fun to write to because she is the type of person who just loves everyone. So she sees someone and she's like, there is someone to love in everyone you meet. And so she's so romantic about everything. And so she falls in love with her friends, and then she's like, no, 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 I can't. And then she falls in love with her cabin mate, and she's like, oh no, I can't. And she's a sweetheart.
Mm. I think that's the beauty of falling in love is that you learn how to love another person and then you allow them to love you. And love requires people to be very close to you, like see you up close and like your flaws and everything about you. And it takes a certain level of bravery. So I think it's really cool that you're intertwining that in this summary romance. What is the importance of LGBTQIA plus representation in the young adult genre to you?
I think representation is always important, no matter what, even if it's like queer, black, um, Mexican, Asian. Like you like teens need to see themselves in work
Mm.
because when I was growing up, all of the books that I read had white protagonists. I mean, and the only ones that had black ones were tragedies.
Yeah.
And so it got so bad to like when I was first writing my book at like 12, your little books you write with friends. I thought protagonists had to be white. I thought that was just a rule. And so it took me until I grew up and I had to be about 20, 21 before I realized like, oh yeah, I can actually write about black people. But that's just like the damage that it does to kids because they just don't see themselves ever in work. They start believing that they can't be the heroes of their own stories. And I think that's so sad. And especially now more than ever with our government trying to be actively hostile to the queer community, I think every book that we put out is like an act of resistance. Like you are okay and you are normal and you can have a beautiful relationship. And this is the world that it can look like. So just hold on. And we're trying our best to make this world a reality for you. And I think that as a kid, I think that would have been very important for me to see. And so I think it's very important. That's why all my protagonists are black no matter what. And almost all of them are queer as well.
That is so cool. I think as well growing up, I only really saw like Katniss Everdeen,
Mm-hmm.
Triss from Divergent, Hermione. Not gonna lie, I did read the first Harry Potter book when I was a little kid. Annabeth in Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. All these super strong female main characters, all very white. And
Yep.
they would have like a black best friend. Trish is a black best friend. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh, that's great, but like, where's her book? Where's her story?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, it kind of felt like we were always like the supporting character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was just personally, I would change the race in my head, or I would change the pronouns in my mind.
Yes. I love
I,
that.
for sure. Or I would go on like fan fiction and I would read like Twilight's like Bella and Alice, and I was like, Edward, move aside, like
Yes.
unnecessary, unnecessary. But like Bonnie from the Vampire Diaries, loved her down. I would have watched an entire spinoff just about her. Elena to me got so aggravating so quickly. But for me, it was like LGBTQIA plus representation. All I really had was like the L word,
Yeah.
and like that was low key hella toxic. Like I
Yeah.
I I do get it. Like it was amazing for the time, and I appreciate all the amazing things that came out of it and probably inspired other projects. But I look back and I'm like, I did not feel like I fit in to any of the representation I was seeing. Um, and I was just like, man, it feels like the world just doesn't want to represent Black queer characters on screen or in books. And now it's
Yeah.
like all these amazing things are coming out. And thanks to you, like authors like you, we're seeing a lot of really beautiful stories that aren't steeped in like trauma. Yes, there may be moments of like hardship. Yes, the characters may face like crappy moments, but it's not the entire plot. And then we're not getting killed off at the end. Like,
Right.
like I'm very grateful you're giving us happy endings. You're giving us complex characters who may have hard moments, but also like found family, friendship, like a tender kind of love. Like seeing that young adult is so needed. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm grateful for everything that you're creating and you're writing in both the romance genre and in horror. Both are necessary and so special. So
Thank you. I'm trying my best.
you're doing that and you're succeeding. My next question for you is, what are some of the themes in your upcoming novel, Hallie's Rules for the Recovering Romantic, that you are excited to highlight and you want to tell listeners about?
For Hallie, she learns that the right person is out there and don't get discouraged and also don't dim your light for everyone. Because Hallie has a problem where she will like throw everything into a person and they don't give anything back. And she thinks that it's her fault, but that's not her fault. That's the other person not being a good partner. And so be yourself. If you fall in love with everyone you meet, that's okay. You don't need to change that. And somebody who appreciates that about you will come along. You just have to be patient.
Mm. It's a beautiful lesson. I absolutely adore it. I want to highlight something on your Instagram story. Yes, I made a note because it was so iconic. You shared on your Instagram story this related to your book. It's a story for someone who feels like she's not good enough, but learns you do not have to be perfect to be loved. What does being loved mean to you? And why did you want to include that in this book?
To me, I have always, I also want to say that it changes from character to character. So, like, Nav's reason is different than Hallie's reason. But Hallie, she just wants to be on a team with someone. Like, she wants to tackle life together and not feel like everything is such a huge problem and not have to walk on eggshells around people. And I think that's beautiful. But overall, all of my romances are just like I put two people together who make each other better. Um, Julia makes Hallie better. She studies better when Julia's around, and Julia remembers things about Hallie that Hallie doesn't even know herself. And in turn, Hallie makes Julia's life easier and and better. And I just think that's wonderful because like that's what a perfect partnership is to me. Like somebody who you can like just be on a team with and be together and it's easy and it's not like having to fight a battle every day.
I love that. That is so beautiful. My last question in relation to Hallie's rules for a recovering romantic is I noticed your characters all feel very real in your stories. Are they inspired by real people in your life? And what do you think brings them to life on the page?
Um, I don't know if this is a popular answer, but they're actually not. None of my characters are inspired by anyone except for Grampire, who is inspired by my real grandma. But yeah, they all are lovingly crafted from scratch. But I usually give them a piece of myself. And it can be a big piece or a small piece. So for Hallie, um, she doesn't like s'mores, and neither do I. So, if I have just like a kernel of like truth, then I can build a character around that.
Ooh,
So that's what I
I
do for
love
all.
that. That is so cool. Okay. I've had a lot of authors say yes, a lot of their characters are indeed inspired by real people. So it's actually quite unique to say, like, no, this is 100% fictional.
Yeah,
That
they
that
are.
is
They're
unique.
fictional.
And I'm sitting here and you're like, I have no enemies. Why? Because they are all fake. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is great. Okay, I want to dive into Grampire. Okay, I absolutely the first time I saw the art for Grampire, like the cover art, I was
Hmm.
pulled in. Okay, I was pulled in. I love my grandma. I do have a sassy grandma like person in my life who's always been around, like giving her 2 cents in the
Yes.
background. So I was immediately pulled in by Grampire. For listeners who have not heard of your online series Grampire, can you tell them a little bit about it?
Yes. So, the story follows an adopted werewolf and her beloved vampire granny. And the werewolf, her name's Malia. She is kind of on the outside of her pack. She's adopted by her aunt and uncle after her parents' death. and she just never really fits in with them. And then she gets struck by lightning, and she discovers that she's been cursed by a mark of the apocalypse. And so her pack chases her out, and they're like, "You're bad luck. We don't want you anymore." And so she teams up with Grampire, the vampire, and they are trying to fix up her busted up hotel that she lives in hopes that somebody will come to the hotel that will know how to remove the mark. And in the spare time, they try to like prevent the coming apocalypse.
I absolutely love it. I like the way you describe it. It just reignites all my joy for the story. So I wanted to ask, what does this spooky grandma mean to you while writing Grampire?
She is based on my grandmother. And I also love my grandma. She's the most important person in my life. I actually live with my grandma.
Oh.
I'm her caregiver, even though she does not like me to say that. She's a very proud woman. And she my grandma's so funny. She's so wacky and zany, and but she has just lived such a full and rich life. And when I created Grampire, I thought that's such an interesting idea that somebody who was turned later in life, so she's lived her whole human life, and then she has to live another second vampire life. And I just thought that was so interesting to play around with and figure out how she would act and how it would jade a person and how you would feel being turned at such an old age, and also the sadness of like watching your family die before you because you're immortal and there's really nothing you can do about it. And so when Malia meets Grampire, she's very lonely, and so the whole book or the series is about them becoming a family together.
I absolutely love that. I think that's such a beautiful way to intertwine not only the complexities of age and vampirism, we see that a little bit in Interview with a Vampire, where we see it in the inverse with a young girl who is now stuck in the body of a child whose
Mm-hmm.
mind is an older woman. Now we're kind of flipping that to an older woman who's forever in this body and has to see her loved ones pass on. And she remains appearing this way, even though her mind is probably much older than that.
Yes.
So it's curse like. So I think it's cool how you kind of invert that. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, I
I,
think immortality is a curse. So
I
I
I
think it is.
agree. I agree. I think it's fun and sexy and romantic when you think about it from the perspective of like a sparkling vampire, like in Twilight. But there's doom and gloom in that story as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not saying werewolves have it any easier. I'm not. I'm just saying that in the fictional world, I think at least with some paranormal characters, they will eventually age and pass on in the natural order versus this concept of like almost like a human statue, like you are always there, like there
Yeah.
is no end ever.
Yeah.
That's why I don't judge people who write books and like the vampires date other people and they have these really big lives, messy romantic lives. You've been alive for millennia. Like
Mm-hmm.
why would you be with just like one person for millennia? Like they never get mad at you, they never run away. That's why like Interview with the Vampire makes the most sense to me because of course your love life would be messy.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You've been alive for so long. Like you guys never got into a fight and then dipped out for maybe 2 decades, came back.
For real.
You know what I mean? Your sense of time would be different. Like I don't know. I think it's very interesting. And maybe not super romantic, but I think yeah, it would be kind of messy, you know?
Yeah. I
So
mean, I agree.
yeah. Lestat, I think he does a lot of horrible things, but I will say, Drama King of the Year, grumpy old man, go back inside, Grandpa. Like the energy. Yeah, I don't know. I like seeing how people write vampires a little differently, and I really enjoy kind of reading through the chapters of Grampire online, and I like how it almost feels like a monster of the week energy.
Yes.
I enjoy that, and that actually segues into my next question for you. Monster of the Week is connected to the themes of this young adult weekly story. What media inspired Grampire?
Big time the X-Files, for sure. I got into an X-Files kick for it was my hyper focus for at least like 3 months. And I just loved watching Scully and Mulder on their various adventures. And I just think that's so fun that they have like a different monster to fight every week. And that's what I wanted to do for Malia and Grampire. Like they're not like romantic like Scully and Mulder eventually become, but they are very good friends, and they have very opposite personalities. Like Grampire is super grumpy. She's very like very, if there's a problem, we gotta like kill it. And Malia's like, let's negotiate, please, before we resort to violence. And
I'm sitting here and I'm like, yes, Grampire, take care of it. Talk,
Grandpa is
queen.
just like, look, I'm old. I want to get home and go back to bed. I don't have time to deal with this. But Malia is so wide eyed and like, and she's very young too, which is fun. So, definitely the X Files. And in the beginning, for sure, the Owl House. If you've ever seen that TV show, that's a
No.
yeah. You should watch it. It's really good. It's a kid show, but it's a similar idea that it's a kid who wants to become a witch, but she's human, so obviously she has no powers, and so she's working hard to become a witch. But the world that she's in is very weird and like gross and like not very whimsical. Like you wouldn't expect that, but it's fun. It's like a little horror land that she's in.
Ooh. What's the name of the show again? I'll write it down.
The Owl House.
The Owl House.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm making a note of that. I will check it out.
It's
Okay.
good. I really like it. It's on Disney Plus.
Okay. Thank you. My next question for you is family is at the heart of the story of Grampire, along with a spooky moment while staying in the young adult genre. What do you want readers to know about Grampire if they're just stepping into this world?
It's fun. It's a fun series. Like it's something that you can read if you're having a bad day. They're gonna cheer you up, and it's got heartfelt moments and it's got comedy. It's a little bit of action every once in a while, but it is very fun. That was my primary objective with this one.
Awesome. Okay. My next questions for you are all about your upcoming book in 2027. This House is Not a Home, coming out early 2027. So you're debuting in the horror genre with this novel. Can you tell listeners a little bit about This House is Not a Home in 3 words?
Ooh, 3 words. Um, Grief, uh, and then spooky, and then um thought provoking. I think that's
Mm.
a connected word.
Okay, I feel like we're coming full circle because we teased it in the beginning and now I'm like, let's get into it. Okay, y'all, like
Yes.
add this to your TBR right now. Okay, so this house is not a home. A woman is mourning her abusive mom and cleaning a spooky house that may be alive. What does the haunted house represent to you specifically? Like while writing this book, did you see everything very visually in your mind, or was it more like just words on a page?
This one is a little tricky because most of my books I do feel like I see them like a movie. But this one was a little more like squiggly in my mind.
Mm.
It actually took me a very long time to write. Longer than my usual. And part of it was because it is a very personal story to me, but also it's my first adult book in a while.
Mm.
My very first book I ever wrote was adult, but I don't do adult as much as I used to do. And so it was very difficult to see, very difficult to wrap my head around it.
Ooh, okay, I hear that. I feel like when a story touches on like a nerve or it touches about something deep inside or like a very visceral story, it can be hard to imagine,
Hmm.
especially if it's spooky in nature. So I get that. I think there was one book I only can read it once or twice every once in a while, but it does hit that like spooky nature I needed. It's two. So the first one is Jackal by Aaron E. Adams, one of my
Hmm.
favorite horror books of all time. So good, like masterpiece, masterpiece. But that first chapter of that horror novel was one of the scariest things I've ever read,
Oh my god, I'm
hands
scared already.
down. Scared me, scared the crap out of me. Also, the victim in the beginning of the story, like the person who gets unalived, the description of her sounds a lot like what I used to look like as a child,
Oh no.
down to like my hairstyle, like sounded exactly like what I used to look like. So it was very scary, very spooky. My grandma lives deep in the woods, and the story is set deep in this isolated woody area. So I was like, oh, I can imagine that perfectly. And then the creature, this horror entity in the story comes about, and it's literally a physical representation of like one of my biggest fears, which is the fear of like walking home or like going about your business and kind of disappearing. This is the
Ooh.
human equivalent of that. Human, if you want to call it that. very
Yeah.
cosmic, very spooky. So amazing book, but I could only read it once or twice. And I reread it many times, but I can only read it once or twice like a year because
Yeah.
it's that
Hmm.
scary.
Yeah.
Super spooky. That and then Play Nice, which is another haunted house, possessed house by
Hmm.
Rachel Harrison, which I read, and it does touch on an abusive mother figure, on alcoholism. It touches on perspective, on trauma, what you remember as a child versus what you remember as an adult, and how those things can differ.
Mm.
Um, the demon, I don't know why I kept imagining it as the demon from Doja Cat's Demons music video. That's who I kept imagining. But the story flips between present and the past. And the past is the mother's perspective. She wrote a book about her experience in this haunted house. And unfortunately, like not many people bought it, but everyone in the neighborhood read it who live near this haunted house. And eventually the book stops being printed. So it's not sold everywhere. And the main character, she has two older sisters, and her dad warns her. He's like, never read that book. Promise me you'll never read it. Like your mom was horrible to you. A, B, and C, don't read it. So the girls never read it. And they don't know about their mom's like firsthand experiences in that house. Because of her
Hmm.
substance abuse issues, no one believed her. So eventually one of the daughters, the main character, finds half of the book in the haunted house. She does end up going. And as she reads through the book, you get the mom's perspective in the past, while the daughter's
Oh,
in the house right now and her experiences in the present. So good. A
scary.
very, very unique kind of haunting. You also may or may not get the demon's perspective on the book because it writes in the margins of the book.
Oh, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotta read that.
It was so
Yeah.
good. References to perspectives of like the 90s, Britney Spears and what she went through. This book was such an interesting perspective of a haunted house, of abuse, of memory. You do get the mom's perspective on certain things that happened versus what the girls experienced. Both are valid, both are heartbreaking. No one comes out unscathed. It is not a happy ending by any means. But it does kind of give breath to the haunted house genre because you get to see like what trauma does to an entire group of people, and what bitterness can do to people and how it can affect your romantic relationships, your sense of self-worth, how you interact with others. Like it's such a unique perspective. Also, there were like darkly funny moments.
Hmm.
It was good. I think you'd really appreciate it. Play Nice was one of the most unique haunted house books I've ever read. And when I read the description of your upcoming book, it reminded me of like the edgy older sister to what your book sounds like. So
Ah, cool. Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
very
Yeah.
similar, like eyebrows, cousins, not sisters. So very unique. My next question to you about This House Is Not a Home. What do you want to see more in the horror genre?
For me, I love wrapping like real human problems into supernatural packages.
Mm.
So like I can't do true crime. It's just too much for me. Knowing that this horrible thing really happened in someone is just like too much for my brain to like handle. But if you put a monster in there and you like, make it more of a metaphor, it becomes much more, you know, I'm able to engage with it at that point. And so that's my favorite flavor of horror. And I would just love to see more of that. I also selfishly want to see more slashers because I think they're very difficult to do in a book format. They're really good in movies, but it's harder in a book. But I just
Mm.
want to see more.
Ooh, okay. I hear you. I may send you over a few of my favorite slasher book recommendations.
Yes.
I may send you maybe two or three recommendations that are coming up that are super unique.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Let me
I,
know because I think
I
they're so
definitely
hard to
will.
do.
No, I can definitely do that. My next one is grief and horror go hand in hand. Films like the 1996 Scream, 2014 The Babadook, 2018 Hereditary, and 2022 Talk to Me are a few. Why do you feel like grief, abuse, and horror are all connected in the book genre?
I think the simple answer is that grief is horrifying. Like it's just there all the time. It's all consuming. You can be
Mm.
going about your day and then suddenly it just hits you like a wave. And then in a lot of ways it's inevitable because grief is the price we pay for loving someone. And so the only way to not experience it is if you never love anyone your whole life, and that's just, darn near impossible. And so I think it's just so painful that people will do whatever it takes to stop feeling it, and sometimes that means horrible, horrible things.
Mm, I get that. As we close out this episode, I wanted to ask you two last questions. Your short story anthology, The Grimoire of Grave Fates, released in 2024, and you had a short story in that collection. How do you feel like that influenced your upcoming horror novel?
It's kind of funny because it doesn't influence it at all. They're two very different things.
Mm.
So in Grimoire, my it was like a whole it was a one single book written by 18 different authors. And so my character was a smooth talking detective who is like kind of weird and like wacky, and she collects tennis shoes. So
Hmm.
she's like a weirdo and she's very fun. But yeah, the vibes are very different than the haunted house.
Okay, I hear you. I thought because the spooky elements of your anthology, I was like, does that inspire
Yeah,
a little bit
it
of your upcoming
it
horror?
is spooky. The book is spooky, but my character was not spooky. She was
Heard.
yeah, she was just like a little kind of silly girl.
Ooh, okay, I hear you. When writing This House Is Not a Home, I wanted to ask, what was your favorite part of writing that book?
Ooh, okay, so there is a dog. I have a thing where there's a dog in every book. And sometimes they're good dogs and sometimes they're bad dogs. And for
Mm.
horror, I get to play around with like the weird and the wonderful and like that kind of thing. So this dog is a horrible little creature. And she was hands down my favorite part of writing the book. Just like when I had beta readers who were giving me feedback, they every time the dog showed up, they were just sweating. They're just like, "What is the dog doing? I can't, I can't." And my main character is in love with this thing, and she sees nothing wrong, and then the reader is just like screaming the whole time.
So something's in the house. It feels like the American Horror Story meme where it's like, there's a killer in the house. So it feels very similar. It's like, what's up with that dog? What's up with that dog?
Yep,
So I'm very
yep.
excited to read your book. As we close out this episode, I wanted to ask, out of all of your books, was there any book that you wanted to share a quote from?
Well, I picked Hallie. And it's not exactly a quote, but it is one of my favorite things. So early in the book, Hallie is looking for Julia because Julia is chronically late. And so her friends call her out on it. They're just like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Nothing." And they're like, "Yes, you are. We know. You're looking for Julia." And then at the very end of the book, they take like the SAT, and Hallie gets in first. And so she's looking, and then Julia comes out, and Julia immediately looks in the crowd until she sees Hallie, and she smiles. And so it's like somewhere along the way, Julia started looking for me too.
Oh my gosh, my heart
I
it's
know.
melting. That sounds
They're
absolutely
sweet.
so sweet. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay, well, I need an ASAP Rocky, please. Send it via Dove my way. So
Right.
please, that sounds amazing. As we're closing out this episode, I wanted to ask, what do you want listeners to know about your books?
I think that if you are looking for books with well-rounded characters, a lot of heart, and if you like dogs, my books are for you. And I hope you can find something that you like and give them a try.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Where can everyone find Grampire? Where can they find your upcoming books?
All of my books are anywhere books are sold, except for Grampire, and that one is for free on Royal Road and also my Patreon. So
Hmm.
you can get to it at my website, which is authorjessicalewis.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram and threads at Jessica Lewis Author.
Fantastic. And I'm excited to say that Hallie's Rules for a Recovering Romantic is coming out very soon. It's just
Yes,
perfect
July
because
7th.
it's coming out in the summertime, which is so
Yes,
fun.
perfect timing.
It's like, yeah, it's the perfect moment in this year just for it to come out. This House Is Not a Home is not coming out till early 2027, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
correct.
Yeah,
Fingers
tentative date
crossed.
is April. We're not sure. So
Okay. Okay, hear
possibly
you.
April. Don't be married to that date.
Okay. And where can everyone find you on social media? Where can they support you?
um, I'm mainly active on Instagram, so that's probably the best way. And that's Jessica Lewis author. And well, really, I'm really active on Threads, but I'm talking about my daily life, not necessarily books. So,
Thank
but
you
yeah,
so much for coming on. I'll make sure to link your social media below along with your upcoming books so they can find you. Everyone who listened, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Leave a nice little rating on Spotify as well. Follow on there. And check out all of Jessica Lewis's books. They'll be linked in the show notes below. You can also add some of these books to your TBR. This House is Not a Home is in the horror genre. And then you've got Hallie's Rules for a Covering Romantic, which is in the young adult romance. And we love to see it. Thank you all for listening and have an absolutely wonderful day. Bye.
bye. Thank you.
Yeah.